Stream up. We're going to start it off with Tales of Toronto. Voila.
Outside a Toronto LCBO store with a man shot and killed.
Witnesses describing a possible argument over physical distancing.
Now, police sources tell us about a fight over
Like, comment, subscribe.
social distancing rules that began inside this LCBO yesterday afternoon.
But witnesses say they did hear the victim and his alleged killer yelling at each other inside the LCBO. In fact, they heard one shout, "Get the expletive away from me, man," in the moments leading up to the shooting.
I had a vision, nobody seen it. I had a dream, no one believed it. I was mesquite, turned to a demon. I was on road, trapping on season. Niggas is hope, can't wait till I see them. Back up the stage, no head.
Story of Go Getter. Squares.
It's October 25th, 2020, and a routine trip to an LCBO store has turned deadly. A brief dispute over social distancing between a local rapper known as Go GETTA and 21-year-old Kuba escalated into a fatal confrontation in the parking lot. What began as a tense exchange turned into a life-altering event, leaving a city stunned and searching for answers. On today's episode of Tales of Toronto, I will be providing answers to the lingering question: how did a moment of frustration spiral into irreversible violence? Michael Roberts, better known by his stage name Go GETTA, is a rapper reigning from Toronto. With his parents and two siblings, Go GETTA was raised in Cataraqui, a housing project in the southwestern part of Scarborough. Cataraqui has a rich history. It's a predominantly Caribbean block and is known to foster some of the city's brightest musical talents. By putting together annual block parties and basketball showdowns, Cataraqui has fostered a tight-knit community. Despite being such a lively community, Cataraqui has faced numerous challenges over the years, including being labeled as one of the more dangerous blocks in the six. Before June 1998, the housing project was referred to as District 13 before Toronto's Housing Committee renamed it Block 13. Many of the people that live in Block 13 feel that this community had made strides in dealing with strife from various gangs, guns, drugs, and prostitution. Toronto police, on the other hand, regard the troubled block as a silent yet rapidly growing criminal organization. As early as the 90s, many adults, young adults and youth from the neighborhood have shown allegiance to the Crip Street Gang, calling themselves the Block 13 Crips. They have traditionally been friendly towards other Crip sets across Scarborough, but when it came to crews reigning from Teesdale, a block just a 5-minute drive away, it was a whole different story. Cataraqui's war-torn history with Teesdale is rumored to have sparked in the summer of 1999 when two members of the Block 13 Crips were caught extorting drugs from a Teesdale crew member, which resulted in a brutal assault at Kennedy Station. The neighborhood strife still continues to this day, and unfortunately, Go GETTA reaped the consequences of the war all throughout his childhood. Go GETTA's upbringing was rough, to say the least. With his mother being white and his father being black, Go GETTA was bullied from a young age because he was mixed race. On one occasion in the 4th grade, he was jumped by a group of kids and robbed of his allowance and cell phone. Soon after this incident, he became the target of constant bullying by other school kids. It got so bad, he would sneak out of school early in order to get home safely. The harassment carried on into his high school years. In one instance, a group of kids were waiting for him to arrive home. When he reached his front porch, they jumped him and a brawl ensued. His father opened the door.
Why they got all the times he getting jumped on camera? It's like a stay getting jumped
When
on
he
camera.
reached his front porch, they jumped him and a brawl ensued. His father opened the door and the neighbors broke up the fight, but 5 minutes later, there were 5 to 10 people banging on their door, trying to get inside. His father called the police and they soon arrived to mediate the situation. The constant harassment took a toll on Go GETTA. Not only did his attendance in school quickly decline, but he started to get in trouble with the law. At 15 years old, he obtained his first 2 charges: assault and assault causing bodily harm. He spent 2 months in custody, 1 month under community supervision, and given 27 months probation plus a 2-year weapons prohibition. Then, at 18 years old, he was charged with possession of property obtained by crime under $5,000 and given 15 months probation. Go GETTA's troubles were just beginning. Soon after his release from custody, his family home was the target of 5 separate shootings. On the first occasion, the then 14-year-old Go GETTA was told that some random guys showed up at the front of the house and started firing shots at his brother. On the second occasion, he had just returned home to find that the police had arrived after someone fired shots at the front window of the house. On the third occasion,
I'll be feeling like that shit is so pussy. I ain't gonna lie. That shit is not gangster shooting at nobody's house, bro. That shit is mad soft. Like, if you know where a nigga live, bro, just wait. Have some fucking patience. Yeah, have some patience. Somebody gonna come out. Niggas be faking, bro. They don't really want to hurt nobody. They just be trying to scare niggas and shit, shooting at the crib. You gonna hit somebody that you don't mean to hit.
He was in the shower when he heard a loud bang. When he and his father went to investigate, they discovered that the front door had been damaged. The police determined that someone had fired a shotgun at the door. The fourth occasion was a drive-by shooting when someone came out of the sunroof of a vehicle and started shooting at his father and his father.
What the fuck is these niggas into? Niggas ain't just pulling up shooting at your crib for nothing, my nigga. Them niggas doing some other shit that child support ain't find out. They doing something, bro. Why the fuck is niggas keep blinking at this nigga crib, trying to get in his crib? That nigga Pops might have been the plug or something, right? Ran off on the plug. Something had to happen. Why do you niggas keep coming to the crib? Like,
father's friend. On the fifth and last occasion, which was either in 2017 or 18, he was playing Fortnite when someone fired a shot through the front window of their house, leaving a bullet in the drywall. In each of these instances, the police attended at the home. Fortunately, no one was ever injured. The details surrounding why GETTA and his family are the target of constant gun violence has never been made clear, but the rapper had detailed an incident which suggests it's because of what block he's from. Sometime in May 2020, his 8 months pregnant girlfriend was driving his Acura to her parents' townhouse, located near Greenwood and Danforth Avenue. The windows of the car were tinted and GETTA was sitting in the front passenger seat. When his girlfriend pulled over and parked beside the curb near her home, he noticed a black male walking on the sidewalk. The male's hood was up, his hands were in his pockets, and he was looking at the Acura. When GETTA opened his car door, the male approached him and asked him, "Where you from?" GETTA responded, "What do you mean where I'm from? I don't know you, you don't know me." The man got angry and responded by saying, "Who are you talking to?" GETTA then looked away from the male for a split second to unbuckle his seatbelt, at which point the male pistol whipped him in the area of his right eyebrow and then ran away. The attack left him with a visible scar on his right eyebrow. GETTA didn't call the police after the incident. Rather, he purchased a firearm for $4,000 from a friend the next day. He says the pistol whipping was the last straw, and despite being under a firearm prohibition order, he purchased the gun to not just protect himself, but his girlfriend and their child who was born a few weeks after the attack. Knowing what GETTA has been through up until this point, it's not hard to understand why he would purchase the firearm. Sadly, this rash decision would prove to be the catalyst in the death of Cuba. 21-year-old Yakub Sudameriki, nicknamed Cuba by love.
He died just because that nigga was sick of being fucked with. For real. Son was sick of being fucked with. This nigga died for no reason.
Was born in Toronto at Women's College Hospital on January 15th during the infamous winter storm of 1999. He was a natural athlete who excelled at many sports, but skiing was his passion. His skill on the hill began at a young age. At 26 months, and with a few short breaks, he skied with his dad for 6 hours up and down River Styx, already exhilarated by his newfound love of the sport. Cuba loved speed, and his skill on the slopes resulted in many club championship race victories, and ultimately the 2012 Whistler Cup in the under-14 slalom category. Cuba always followed his own path. He loved adventure and the excitement of life. Those close to Cuba described him as having the most amazing energy which impacted everyone he knew. He touched the lives of the people around him with his curious nature, his sense of humor, his hilarious antics, and his great warmth. He had an incredible ability to connect with people, and they were drawn to his charming nature and enthusiasm for life. Cuba loved his friends and was fiercely loyal. He never left a room without saying goodbye to everyone. Cuba came from a loving family who would do anything for him, which makes it all the more difficult to understand why he turned to drug trafficking to support himself when he turned 21. According to Ontario Provincial Police, on Saturday, March 28, 2020, Huronia West OPP officers stopped a speeding vehicle on Highway 26 at around 9 p.m. The driver, Cuba, had a suspended license, and officers found that there was a quantity of cannabis readily available to him. An ensuing search found an even larger quantity of pot, a small amount of cocaine, several cell phones, scales, a large amount of cash, and a knife. In addition to speeding, Kubo was subsequently charged with possessing cannabis for the purpose of selling, possession of proceeds of property obtained by crime over $5,000, possession of a weapon for a dangerous purpose, and driving while under a criminal code suspension. Despite his legal woes, Kubo was back on road by October, which is when he would encounter GETTA. Fresh off the release of his debut single, the then 20-year-old GETTA intended to go to a friend's birthday party on October 25, 2020, and planned to leave his house at 6 p.m. He stated that he woke up at around noon and smoked a marijuana joint a few minutes later. He took a shower, ate some food, and then hung out with his brother. He played Fortnite in his brother's bedroom and continued to smoke marijuana. He played Fortnite until 4:30 p.m., which is when 15-year-old Ms. Jalea Costain Williams showed up at his house. GETTA described her as just a friend, but acknowledged that he was hoping that their relationship would quote-unquote go somewhere. They had
15 and 20 type crazy anyway.
Met at a party in June 2020, spoke a lot on the phone, and had seen each other about 4 times. Ms. Williams had earlier asked him if she could go to his friend's party, and GETTA told her, no problem. After smoking nearly 7 joints with his brother, GETTA began getting anxious. Ms. Williams noticed this and told him, Michael, I see you're high, it's okay. You don't have to be nervous, you can just relax. After being reassured, GETTA got comfortable, calmed down, and decided to drive to an LCBO with Ms. Williams to grab a bottle of Hennessy and some champagne. At 5:24 p.m., GETTA and Ms. Williams can be seen on camera arriving to the LCBO located on 3111 Danforth Avenue. GETTA had his gun, which was on the left side of his waist and tucked into his boxers. GETTA, with Ms. Williams following behind him, went directly to the far right corner of the LCBO, where he grabbed 2 bottles of champagne. He then went to the middle of the store and waited for a worker he knew as Mr. Yilmaz to retrieve the Hennessy from the locked cabinet. According to GETTA, he had a good rapport with Mr. Yilmaz. He always served him whenever he went to that LCBO, and they had conversations, laughed together, and talked about sports. After grabbing the Hennessy, Mr. Yilmaz asked GETTA, would you mind coming to my line after? To which he replied with, no problem. When GETTA made his way to Mr. Yilmaz's line, he noticed Kuba standing in front of him counting cash on the counter. As soon as he got to the counter, Kuba looked at him and told him, back the f*** up, you're too close to me. Confused, GETTA replied, what? I'm not even close to you. Kuba replied back, bro, I said back the f*** up, you're too f***ing close to me. Noticing tension building between the two, Mr. Yilmaz gestured with his left hand and asked GETTA,
nah, you sweet. Who the fuck are you talking to? You don't know I got the blick on me, nigga? Alright.
To step back, at which point he moved back. Cameras then caught the moment GETTA and Kuba exchanged an intense yet brief stare down before Kuba paid for his liquor and left the establishment. Following the tense exchange, GETTA became paranoid, thinking someone was going to call the police, and since he had a gun on him, he decided it was best to leave the cash for the liquor with Ms. Williams and go back to his car and out of the public eye. Cameras caught the moment GETTA exited the establishment.
This is what he said. Remember, it said that's why he left, because he thought somebody gonna call the police. What they gonna call the police for? Hey, I ain't do nothing. GETTA was going out there to boom him. He ain't think the police. He was like, hey, pay for this. I'm about to go holler at this nigga.
To his car and out of the public eye. Cameras caught the moment GETTA exited the establishment while shuffling through his satchel for his car keys. As soon as he stepped out of the LCBO, he saw Kuba stop, turn around, and look at him. GETTA didn't think much of it and walked towards his car, still searching for his car keys and his satchel. Once he reached his vehicle, he looked down towards his pockets to find his keys, and when he looked back up, he was shocked to find Kuba standing directly in front of him. According to GETTA, the following interaction is what ensued. Kuba, in a menacing tone and through his clenched teeth, said, "What's popping you?" He then pulled out a knife from his left pocket, pointed it at GETTA's stomach, and asked him, "What you gotta say now?" Enraged by the racial slur and remembering how badly he was bullied as a child because of his race, GETTA flew into a blind rage and immediately reached for his gun with his right hand and pulled it out from his waistband. According to witnesses, Kuba screamed no, then ran in between two parked cars for cover, completely unaware GETTA was right behind him. GETTA then shot Kuba once in the back, causing him to scream these last words before collapsing. "You shot me, you fucking shot me." 911 calls came flooding in and police and EMS arrived shortly after. 8 minutes after fleeing the scene of the shooting, Go-Getta was arrested at his friend's house and taken to 41 Division. Kuba was taken to St. Michael's Hospital, where he was pronounced dead at 6:25 p.m. that day. He was Toronto's 60th murder victim of 2020.
But first to the deadly confrontation outside a Toronto LCBO store with a man shot and killed.
Witnesses describing a possible argument over physical distancing.
Now, police sources tell us about a fight over social distancing rules that began inside this LCBO yesterday afternoon.
But witnesses say they did hear the victim and his alleged killer yelling at each other inside the LCBO. In fact, they heard one shout, "Get the expletive away from me, man," in the moments leading up to the shooting.
Since Kuba's death came at a time when Canada was seeing an influx of violent crimes pertaining to COVID-19 rules, news of his murder made headlines across the country. Some were appalled at how someone can be killed over something as minor as social distancing, while others weren't surprised, considering how on edge the entire city was at the time.
I think that this city is, well, humanity right now. We're on a razor's edge. We're just ready to explode.
Shortly after the shooting, Go-Getta was released on bail and took the opportunity to release more music, but not before getting himself into more legal trouble. On August 8, 2022, he was charged with assaulting a peace officer and sentenced to 1 day plus 30 days of pre-sentence custody and given a 5-year weapons prohibition. A year later, he would go on to release 2 new songs.
I had to try, couldn't tell you about the nights that I cried. Standing on that corner wishing that the dogs were outside. Something happened, get the car, I guess it's time to go ride. You know I'm gon' chalk it. I don't give a fuck if a nigga wanna talk shit. If a nigga wanna talk shit, I don't give a fuck if a nigga wanna talk shit. If a nigga wanna talk shit, I don't give a fuck if a nigga wanna talk shit.
Go-Getta was due to stand trial in the beginning of 2024. In court, the Crown presented several pieces of evidence, including a knife and a single 9mm cartridge casing, both of which were found at the scene of the crime. They argued although Kuba may have presented a knife prior to the shooting, Go-Getta was keen on getting revenge for embarrassing him in front of his female companion. They also pointed out surveillance footage showing Go-Getta walking in the direction of Kuba, which refutes his statement of walking towards his car. Kuba can then be seen making eye contact with Go-Getta and walking right towards him. The footage is then zoomed in on Go-Getta pulling out a gun from his waistband. He insists it wasn't a gun, rather, it was his hand with nothing in it. The two can be seen having a brief discussion moments before things turned deadly. The defense tried to argue provocation, claiming the situation wouldn't have turned out the way it did if Kuba didn't pull out a knife, but the judge wasn't buying it. The judge was quoted saying, "With respect to the partial defense of provocation, it does not matter if Mr. Sudameraki had a knife in his hand at this point because Mr. Roberts had his gun in one of his hands and was ready to use it in whatever confrontation that was about to happen. Plus, after pulling out the gun, Kuba screamed no and attempted to flee, but Go-Getta chased him down and shot him in the back, thus making him out to be the aggressor in the confrontation." In cross-examination, Go-Getta was asked by the Crown if his anger was attributable to the racial slur and the pulling of the knife, or a result of being so high from having smoked up to 12 joints that day. "So you are agreeing with me that your blind rage had nothing to do with the fact that you had smoked 12 joints by that point?" Go-Getta replied, "My reaction, it might have played a role, correct, because if you know marijuana, I don't know if you smoke marijuana, Mr. Gorda, but it affects the mental state, it affects your reactions, it affects your emotions, and it affects how you think. But at that moment, I was more enraged at the fact that somebody's calling me with a knife in their hand. I really can't say if the high affected me, I'm not sure. I just know I went into a blind rage at the fact that he called me with a knife in his hand." When the Crown and defense were done presenting their sides of the case, Superior Court Justice Nola Garton's final remarks before sentencing are as follows. Having considered the video evidence and all the evidence as a whole, the calm and focused way in which Mr. Roberts stood his ground with Mr. Sudameraki in the LCBO, his confronting Mr. Sudameraki almost immediately thereafter and then chasing and shooting him from behind when he had the chance, I am satisfied beyond a reasonable doubt that when Mr. Roberts fired that shot, he intended to kill Mr. Sudameraki. And coming to this conclusion, I am satisfied that the Crown has met its burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Mr. Roberts is therefore found guilty of second-degree murder. Go-Getter, sitting in the prisoner's box in a gray shirt and blazer, showed no emotion as he was convicted. In Canada, a second-degree murder conviction carries a mandatory life sentence with no possibility of parole for at least 10 years, but no more than 25. The exact details of Go-Getter's parole eligibility has not been publicly disclosed. The case of Go-Getter is a tragic reminder of how a small conflict can lead to devastating consequences. A brief argument over social distancing ended in a life lost and another changed forever. As Go-Getter faces the consequences of his actions, this story highlights the importance of...
I ain't even mad at Go-Getter. I ain't gonna hold you. I ain't even mad at him. I ain't mad at him. I probably would have did the same shit, crashed out. I probably would have crashed out the same way. A nigga talking to me crazy, I got the blick on me. Lying to me.
Staying calm and valuing life, even in tense moments.
Like, comment, subscribe. Yeah, free Go-Getter. Yeah, I ain't mad at Go-Getter.